Welcome to A Gallen of Questions. My name is Pat Gallen, and of course, this is a super preview show ahead of Super Bowl 59, and it's the Eagles and Chiefs, as you know, a rematch of 2 years ago, and who better to bring in on this program to talk about something this monumental, this big, than the Hall of Famer, Mr. Ray Didinger, here in studio, one of the great football minds in this city's history. Ray, thank you for coming back and doing this. I really appreciate it.
Always a pleasure, Pat.
So what we do on this show, as you know, you were here a couple of years ago, is we do the can, got the random questions, and I like to do it this way just because it takes you in directions. You never know where you're going to go, and we'll see where we land. You want to do it?
Why not?
All right, let's do it. We'll start with question number one. These are pretty much all Super Bowl related questions, and I want to ask you what you've been up to before we wrap up today. So let's start with a Chiefs question.
Okay.
Is Travis Kelce the best tight end in history? You've seen a lot of great tight ends
Sure have.
in your time. Where would he land amongst the greats?
I probably would have said a year or two ago, I probably would have still said Tony Gonzalez.
Okay.
Also Kansas City Chief.
Yeah.
I thought that Gonzalez was a great player, and he was a great player. That's why he's in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
But if I had to do it now, I probably would say Kelce.
Is that right?
I probably would say Kelce because of the longevity of his career and because of the way he played in big games.
Yeah.
The way he played in the postseason. Not that Gonzalez underachieved ever in his career,
Sure.
but I think what Kelce has done in the big games and in being such an integral part of this Kansas City dynasty, which you have to call it now, I would have to give him the edge, yes. And I actually think that he is, to me, he's the key to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, okay. That was actually one of the questions, X factor of the Super Bowl. You think it could be him?
I think it's him. And if I were Vic Fangio, my strategy going into this would be very simple. Play Kelce.
Yeah.
Double team him. Don't let Kelce beat you.
Yeah.
Make Mahomes play with his wide receivers.
Sure.
But you cannot let Kelce take over the game.
That's a really good point.
If I'm scheming anything over these next 2 weeks, preparing for the Super Bowl, if I'm Vic Fangio, that's what I'm doing. It's a way of trying to bracket, limit, and contain Kelce and make Mahomes make those wide receivers play.
And just looking big picture at what Travis Kelce's done, I love that. Not that he hasn't put up incredible numbers during the regular season, but when he gets into the playoffs, there's this switch that he flips and he becomes a different player. And so hopefully we do not see that on Super Bowl Sunday. Question 2 for you. Is Zach Bond the defensive player of the year, in your opinion? He is up for it.
I know he is, which is extraordinary.
Unreal.
Because you think about the other candidates for it, it's the obvious ones. It's T.J. Watt. It's the superstars.
Sure.
It's the guys who are there every year.
Yep.
Zach Bond's kind of crashed the party this year, didn't he?
Yeah.
And I don't think he'll win it for that very reason.
Okay,
Because there's still a lot of people who really don't know who he is,
Sure.
and probably see his success as something of an outlier.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look at what he did week in and week out, his consistency and how many big plays he made over and over. It's not just a matter of total tackles or the volume of them. It's in key situations, him punching the ball loose or him falling on a fumble or him always being in the right place at the right time. In all honesty, I'll say this. I don't think he will win just because not enough voters know who he is.
Sure.
But if I had a vote, I would vote for him. I think he has been that important to this team's success.
Have you seen anything even remotely close to this? A guy who comes out of nowhere? I mean, I guess you could say maybe like a Kurt Warner type story at quarterback, but defensively is a little bit different. You don't often see guys just kind of, again, flip the switch and become a star at that position when they haven't done it their first couple of years in the league.
No, I haven't seen anything quite like this. I mean, I've seen guys who were unknown that were drafted late that got to the league and became stars.
Sure.
I mean, that happens. But a guy that was with one organization, playing with one organization, changes, signs with another team, and just because a coach kind of watches the tape and says, you know what, I think if we move him from there to there, he could be a really good player for us. And that's kind of what happened with Bond. And, now you got a big decision of what do you do with him. Now, to me, it's no decision at all. to me, I don't think there's any way you can let this guy walk.
Agree. 100%.
Now, it's going to cost you a lot of money to keep him, but, I mean, with what he's done this year, the way he's contributed, and how valuable he's been, I think you got to pay him the money and keep him.
100% agree. Give Bond the bag. That's what we got to do here. All right, next question for you, Ray, is what do you love most about Jalen Hurts? What do you love most about the quarterback?
That he wins. That he wins. You know, I don't think he's the kind of quarterback that he's not, you know, he's never going to lead the league in touchdown passes.
Yep.
He's never going to lead the league in yardage. He's probably never going to lead the league in a lot of the statistical measurements by which they define quarterbacks in the NFL. But I've always subscribed to the Terry Bradshaw theory, which is you rate your quarterbacks by two things. Do they score points and do they win games? Mm-hmm. You know, I remember interviewing Bradshaw when I was with NFL Films. And he was talking about the fact that if you look at the all-time ranking of NFL quarterbacks, and you do it by passer rating or quarterback efficiency, whatever those metrics are, you know, Bradshaw says I'm like 93rd or something. I mean really, and there are guys in there above him, you know, the David Craigs and the Jimmy Garoppolos and all these other guys. And he said, and they've got, you know, better this and better that. But to me, it's just about did I score points, and did my team win games? And that's what quarterbacks are there for. You're there to lead your offense, score points, and win games ultimately. That's how you measure that. He said that's the measurement of a quarterback in my mind. I think that makes a lot of sense. And if that's your criteria, then Jalen Hurts is right there with the best of them. I mean, he always finds a way to win. And I think you've seen him change a lot over the course of this year. Is he the dynamic runner that he was 2 years ago? Probably not. Right. But what he has done over the course of this year is he has pretty much taken the mistakes out of his game. And, I mean, he has gone almost 3 months now without throwing an interception.
Unbelievable.
And when you go into a game of this magnitude, the Super Bowl, so often the game swings on mistakes, turnovers, interceptions. And to have a quarterback who's taken the mistakes out of his game, that's the kind of guy that you usually win with.
No doubt. I think Super Bowl 57 was the best I've ever seen him play, but this NFC Championship game was pretty close. Some of the high-level throws that he was making, that fourth down throw to A.J. Brown, some really impressive stuff. You mentioned this. Travis Kelce is your X factor for the Chiefs. Who's the X factor for the Eagles in Super Bowl 59?
I've said him before, and I'll say it again. I think it's Vic Fangio.
Okay.
I think it's Vic Fangio because I think that when you look at Super Bowls that the Eagles have lost, the Super Bowl they lost in Jacksonville was one of the very, very rare occasions when Jim Johnson got outcoached. The second half of that game, the Patriots came out, and Charlie Weiss began changing his whole offense and countering the Eagles' blitz with screens and draws. And the Patriots, that's how they came back and won the game. Yep. And you can't often say you ever saw Jim Johnson get outcoached, but he did in the second half of that game, and it cost them. In the Super Bowl the Eagles won, the Eagles had no defense. Jim Schwartz, his defense gave up 600 yards, so you can't even count that.
Yep.
But the game 2 years ago against this Chiefs team, the second half of that game, Andy Reid probably coached the best 30 minutes of his career, the second half of that game, and he thoroughly took Jonathan Gannon to school in that game.
Yes, he did.
So you look at these three recent Eagles Super Bowls, the defensive coordinators, including one great one in Jim Johnson, had bad days. This is the one time when I think that the Eagles have a defensive coordinator who's going to be equal to the moment. I think Fangio he's been around forever.
Yep.
He's been in big games before. And he's really, really good at understanding what the other team wants to do offensively and taking away their best.
Sure.
And so this is one game where I think there was some concern, at least I had some concern 2 years ago, about Jonathan Gannon. I just was not a big believer in his philosophy of defense.
Just so soft.
And I really thought that could be their downfall in that game, playing against a dynamic offense like the Chiefs, and it was. I feel much more confident going into this game against the same Chiefs team and against Andy Reid and all that. I feel that the Eagles are much better armed with Vic Fangio calling the plays on defense.
There it is, the perfect X factor for this game, Vic Fangio. I agree with you. Am I ever not going to agree with what Ray Didinger said? Probably not, right? How much Taylor Swift will you listen to between now and the Super Bowl?
I'm actually a Taylor Swift fan.
Are you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I like her a lot. I remember the first time I saw Taylor Swift, she came to sing the national anthem for a Sixers game.
Yeah.
And this was a while ago.
Yeah.
I mean, she was just a kid. She was still in high school out in Berks County.
Yep.
And I remember them introducing her and hearing her sing the anthem and thinking, wow, she's really good. I had no idea I was getting a preview of what was to become the Taylor Swift experience.
Sure.
Swept the world. But I still remember her singing the anthem at a Sixers game, and to see what's become of her career, pretty amazing. And I think she's really good. I think she's I think she's a really good performer, terrific entertainer, and the fact that she writes her own music, I think it makes her a pretty special talent.
So Ray Diddy's cranking up the Taylor Swift in the car on the Schuylkill Expressway. Is that what we're going with here?
No, I have my own collection of CDs that I play in the car. But
sure.
if I am listening to the radio and Taylor Swift comes on, I don't change the channel.
I like it. Where does the NFC Championship game performance rank for you among the best Eagles playoff games that you can remember? That was a thorough thrashing. The double nickel game, some are calling it.
Yeah.
Pretty impressive.
Right up near the top because it was – I didn't expect that. I mean, I thought they would beat Washington.
Yeah.
But I thought it was going to be a close, hard-fought game because Washington – it's easy now to say, oh, they weren't that good. Oh, really? The week before they went to Detroit and blew out the number one seed. So I don't want to hear this revisionist history that Washington wasn't that good. No, they were. They came in here as a red-hot team, but playing with tremendous confidence,
yes, with
a great young quarterback, with all kinds of momentum. They had just beaten the Eagles down in Washington a few weeks earlier, and the Eagles were just better.
Yeah.
I mean, the Eagles just outclassed them. They outplayed them. And I thought that in terms of dominance in all phases of the game, this was a very complete game for the Eagles play. Yeah. And I mean, every special teams contributed. The offense was great. And the defense, took the ball away 4 times. And in playoff games, if you get 4 takeaways, you're going to win most of the time.
Doubt.
That's kind of what this game is going to come down to, I feel, ultimately. It's going to come down to, turnovers, takeaways, mistakes, penalties.
Sure.
I mean, this game, I think, is going to play out a lot like the Eagles-Chiefs Super Bowl of a couple years ago.
100%.
I think it's going to be close going into the fourth quarter. And like one big play, or I hate to say it, one official's call could swing the needle. No doubt. And I hope it doesn't come down to that, but it could.
Last question. How much better is Saquon Barkley than you thought he could be this season?
A lot. A lot. And I thought, and I fully expected him to come in and be great because I had seen him play a lot at Penn State, and I knew what a rare talent he was.
Sure.
And I thought he got caught in a bad situation in New York, but I really felt like still in his prime, coming to this team in this offense, behind that offensive line, he was going to be great. But he has exceeded all of my expectations. And he's had a year that has just been, well, a lot of people say, is he the greatest running back in Eagles history? And again, I say, if you're talking about a career, I mean, you still cannot forget what Van Buren did in the 40s.
Sure.
But if you want to talk about the greatest single season by an Eagles running back, yeah, this probably is.
Yeah.
And in terms of his talent, in terms of his skill set, I mean, the Eagles have had explosive backs before. I mean, Shady McCoy was an explosive back, no doubt. And they have had big, powerful backs that were fast, like Herschel Walker. We've seen that. But they've never had a guy that was this fast and this elusive.
Yes.
You know, like Herschel was super fast. I mean, he was world-class track fast, but he was a straight-line runner. Yeah. Shady was a real darter in and out, but he didn't have the raw power that this guy has. In my time, in my view, the Eagles have never had a running back that has this kind of power, this kind of explosiveness, and this kind of elusiveness all in one package.
Sure.
I mean, in terms of those unique skills, this guy is the best that the Eagles have ever had. And so I expected him to come here and rush for 1,500 yards. I expected him to come here and be a guy that was going to reshape the offense.
Sure.
But the idea that he was going to come here and 2,000 yards and, 60-yard touchdowns like they were nothing.
Yeah.
No, I didn't expect that. I got to tell you, Pat, that first carry against Washington, I mean, he takes that pitch and he goes around the end, and the first thing I'm just saying, he's going to go.
Yeah.
He's going to take this to the house. And the only thing I could really think about was, and it took me back. It took me back to Wilbert Montgomery against the Cowboys. That 1980 championship game at the Vet, a freezing cold day, second play from scrimmage. They hand off to Montgomery, 42 yards to the end zone. The stadium is rocking. The fans are electrified. And at that point, the Cowboys could have just packed up and gone home.
Sure.
Game was over. And I felt that way about this one. It was just, when I watched him break into the clear and start heading for the end zone, I just had flashbacks to Wilbert Montgomery against the Cowboys in that other NFC championship game. And, I mean, that's the kind of impact that he's had on this team. And they've got a lot of great players on this team, and a lot of big personalities on this team.
Sure.
But there's no question right now who the leader of this team is. It's him.
Is this maybe the best season you've ever seen from a running back? I know OJ did the majority of his work in a fewer number of games, but in this day and age, it seems so hard the way the game is structured to be able to put up a season like he just did. So is this near or at the top?
I think the closest comparison to me would be the guy he's chasing now, which would be Terrell Davis.
Okay.
Because that whole Denver team, even though they had Elway at quarterback, that whole Denver team ran through Terrell Davis, and that zone read kind of offense that Shanahan had out there. It was Elway, but it was Elway at the end of his career.
Yep.
And Elway had never won a Super Bowl until he had that guy. And then that guy made all the difference. And I thought that in terms of a single running back defining a team's whole mission and whole success, I thought the Terrell Davis years in Denver were the best that I had seen.
Okay.
OJ, the 2,000-yard season was amazing, but the Bills didn't really go anywhere. It didn't really take you anywhere.
Sure.
It took you to the playoffs, and you're one and done. But that Denver team rolled through the postseason and won back-to-back Super Bowls, and it was all built around a very special player in Davis. That's what I'm seeing with this guy.
Ray, thank you so much. Tell the people, what are you doing these days? Like, what are you up to? Staying busy, obviously.
Yeah, people say to me all the time, I thought you retired. And I did, kind of. I retired from full-time TV and radio.
Sure.
But the success of the Phillies and the Eagles have kind of kept my phone ringing.
Yeah, I bet.
Which is fine. I certainly don't mind talking about that kind of thing. And I've written at least one more book and who knows
Possibly another.
if the Eagles win another Super Bowl, there'll be a 4th edition of the Eagles Encyclopedia is coming soon to bookstores near you. And my play, Tommy and Me, is still ongoing. We're just finishing up a run at the People's Light Theater out in Malvern, and they've already told us that they want us back next year, and if that happens, that will be the 10th anniversary of Tommy and Me.
Wow.
We launched that play in 2016. It's still going. So that's been a wonderful, wonderful thing. It's been a great experience, and I have enjoyed every single minute of that.
Do you know how many total runs it's had? Do you keep that number?
Yeah, we have had a dozen runs in 7 different theaters now. People's Light is our 7th different venue, and we have had 12 different productions over that course of time. 2 of the actors have been with us from the beginning. 2 of the other parts have changed over, but we have had an absolute blast, and the story of me and Tommy McDonald has just connected with generations of people.
Sure.
And there's a documentary film in the works about it. And so a lot is happening, but it's all good.
Very good. Ray, thank you for answering the phone when I called. I appreciate you coming in and breaking down what's to come here in Super Bowl 59. I know you're excited, and I am too. So thank you so much. Good to see you.
Always great to work with you, Pat. Thanks.